Hash the wish under the lights. The fairy lights had been glowing for 3 nights straight when Emma finally worked up the courage to make her wish. She sat on the old wooden bench in Riverside Park, her small hands folded in her lap, watching her breath create little clouds in the frigid December air. The vintage pink dress her grandmother had sewn for her was warm but not quite enough for this kind of cold, yet Emma didn't mind. There was something magical about this spot, especially when the snow began to fall through the golden glow of hundreds of twinkling lights strung between the bare oak trees. At 7 years old, Emma believed in magic with the fierce certainty that only children possess. She believed in Christmas miracles, in wishes that came true, and in the power of hoping hard enough for something wonderful to happen. Tonight, on December 22nd, with Christmas just 3 days away, she was going to make the most important wish of her life. The park was nearly empty. Most people were home, warm and cozy, preparing for the holidays. But Emma had snuck out after her foster parents, the Hendersons, had gone to bed. She'd done this twice before this week, drawn by something she couldn't quite explain, a feeling that this place, under these lights, was where something special was supposed to happen. Snowflakes began to fall more steadily, each one catching the golden light and sparkling like tiny stars before landing on her blonde braids. Emma closed her eyes tight and whispered her wish into the winter night. "I wish," she said softly, "for someone who will want to keep me forever. Someone who won't give me back when things get hard. Someone who will love me like I'm really theirs." She opened her eyes just as footsteps crunched through the snow behind her. Emma turned to see a man approaching slowly, carefully, as if he didn't want to frighten her. He was tall and wore a dark coat, and in his hands was a brown paper bag that seemed to glow softly in the fairy lights. "Hello there," he said gently, stopping a few feet away. "Are you all right? It's pretty cold to be out here alone." Emma studied him with the serious expression children reserve for adults they're trying to decide whether to trust. He had kind eyes and a gentle voice, and something about him felt familiar, though she was certain they'd never met. "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers," Emma said, but without the fear that usually accompanied such statements. Somehow, this didn't feel like talking to a stranger. The man smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "That's very smart. My name is David. I'm not exactly a stranger, though I've been looking for you." Emma's heart skipped. Those were the words every foster child dreamed of hearing, though usually they came from social workers with bad news. "Looking for me? May I sit?" David asked, gesturing to the other end of the bench. When Emma nodded, he settled down, leaving plenty of space between them. The bag in his hands seemed to shimmer slightly, though that might have been the reflection of the lights. "Emma," he said, and her eyes widened at hearing her name. "You've been making wishes here for 3 nights. How do you know my name? How do you know about—" Emma stopped, staring at him. "Are you magic?" David laughed, a warm sound that seemed to make the snowflakes dance more merrily around them. "In a way, yes. But not the kind of magic you might think. I'm the kind of magic that happens when people's hearts call out for something they need, and the universe listens." Emma frowned, trying to understand. "I don't get it." 3 nights ago, David said, when you made your first wish under these lights, something interesting happened. About 10 miles from here, a man named Thomas Chen was sitting in his apartment, looking at pictures of his late wife and wishing more than anything that he could honor her memory by giving a child the love they'd planned to share. He'd been thinking about adoption for months but was afraid he wouldn't be enough, raising a child on his own. Emma's breath caught. "Really? Really? And last night, when you made your second wish, a woman named Sarah Martinez was cleaning out her spare bedroom, the one she'd been saving for a daughter she thought she'd never have. She's a teacher at Willowbrook Elementary, maybe you know it, and she's been dreaming of adopting a little girl who needs a mom who understands how special and wonderful children are." Emma knew Willowbrook Elementary. It was the school she'd hoped to attend if her current placement became permanent, but the Hendersons had made it clear that wouldn't be happening. "And tonight," David continued, "when you made your wish for someone to love you forever, both Thomas and Sarah were filling out adoption paperwork. Thomas was thinking about how his wife always said their home would be perfect for a little girl with braids and a smile that could light up a room. Sarah was writing about how she'd love to teach a daughter to bake cookies and read bedtime stories. Emma's eyes filled with tears. But that doesn't make sense. There are lots of kids who need families. Why would they pick me? David reached into his bag and pulled out a small, leather-bound photo album. Because some connections are meant to be. Sometimes the universe puts people exactly where they need to be, when they need to be there. He opened the album to the first page, and Emma gasped. It was a photo of her, but not one she remembered having taken. In the picture, she was laughing, her braids flying as she spun in a circle, and standing nearby were two people, a kind-looking Asian man with gentle eyes and a warm-faced Latina woman with the biggest smile Emma had ever seen. That's impossible, Emma whispered. I've never met them. I've never been to wherever this picture was taken. Haven't you? David asked softly. Look closer. Emma studied the photo again, and suddenly she recognized the background. It was this very park, but in spring, with the trees full of green leaves and flowers blooming in the distance. And now that she looked more carefully, she could see the faint outlines of the same fairy lights, though they weren't lit in the daytime photo. This is where you've been making your wishes, David said. And this is where Thomas proposed to his wife 15 years ago. And this is where Sarah comes every Sunday morning to read and remember her own childhood, when her grandmother used to bring her here to feed the ducks. Emma turned the page. There were more photos, pictures of her doing things she'd never done, in places she'd never been, but with the same two people. Playing in a backyard garden. Helping bake cookies in a bright kitchen. Reading a bedtime story in a cozy bedroom with yellow walls and fairy lights around the ceiling. Are these the future? Emma asked, her voice barely a whisper. They're possibilities, David said. They're all the moments that could happen if you're brave enough to believe they can. Emma looked up at him, and in the golden light of the fairy lights, she could have sworn she saw something otherworldly in his expression, ancient and kind and infinitely patient. Who are you really? She asked. David smiled. I'm what happens when wishes and hope and love all come together in one place at the right time. I'm the bridge between what is and what could be. And sometimes, when a little girl wishes hard enough under fairy lights on 3 December nights, I get to deliver Christmas. Miracles. He reached into his bag again and pulled out a small wrapped box. This is for you. Emma took the box with trembling fingers. It was surprisingly warm, and it seemed to hum with gentle energy. What is it? Open it and see. Inside the box was a delicate silver locket, heart-shaped and engraved with tiny stars. When Emma opened it, one side held a picture of her, not a photograph, but somehow captured perfectly, showing her exactly as she was in this moment, hope and wonder shining in her eyes. The other side was empty. The empty side, David explained, is for the picture of your family. When you find them, or they find you, you'll know what to put there. Emma fastened the locket around her neck, and immediately felt a warmth spread through her chest. Will I see Thomas and Sarah soon? Very soon, David promised. In fact, they're both planning to visit Riverside Children's Home tomorrow afternoon. There's going to be a Christmas party, and they'll both be volunteering. Sometimes the most magical things happen at Christmas parties. Emma's foster placement was through Riverside Children's Home. She'd be at the party tomorrow. Her heart began to race with possibility. What if they don't like me? She whispered, voicing her deepest fear. What if I'm not what they're looking for? David reached out and gently touched the locket at her throat. Emma, do you know what makes a wish come true? She shook her head. It's not magic, exactly. It's not even hoping hard enough. It's being brave enough to let yourself be loved. Some people spend their whole lives wishing for love but never opening their hearts enough to let it in. But you've been sitting on this bench in the cold for 3 nights, putting your whole heart into a wish for a family. That kind of courage, that kind of open-hearted hope, that's what makes miracles happen. The snow was falling more heavily now, creating a white curtain around them that made their circle of light feel even more magical and separate from the world. Will I see you again? Emma asked. David stood up, and as he did, Emma noticed that his footprints in the snow seemed to glow faintly in the fairy light. You'll see me every time you make a wish with your whole heart. Every time you choose hope over fear. Every time you're brave enough to love someone new. He smiled. And I think you're going to have lots of opportunities for that. He handed her the paper bag. This is for Thomas and Sarah, when you meet them. Inside are all the things they've been wishing for too. Courage to be good parents, wisdom to know how to love you properly, and hope that they'll be everything you need. Emma peeked inside the bag. It seemed to be full of golden light, warm and welcoming. What is it really? All the love they have to give you, just waiting for the right moment to be shared. David began to walk away, and as he did, Emma noticed something incredible. With each step he took, the fairy lights in the trees grew a little brighter, a little warmer. By the time he reached the edge of the circle of light, the entire grove was glowing like daytime, like a small piece of heaven had settled into Riverside Park. David, Emma called out. Thank you. He turned back one last time, and now Emma could see clearly what she had only sensed before. He wasn't entirely human, or rather, he was something more than human. His outline seemed to shimmer with the same golden light as the fairy lights, and his smile held the warmth of every Christmas morning and every answered prayer. Thank you, Emma, he called back, for believing in magic. For being brave enough to wish for love. The world needs more people like you. And then he was gone, vanished into the swirling snow as if he had never been there at all. But the fairy lights remained brighter than before, and the paper bag in Emma's hands was warm with promise. Emma sat on the bench for a few more minutes, holding the bag and touching her locket, watching the snow fall through the golden light. Tomorrow, she would meet Thomas and Sarah. Tomorrow, she would find out if the magic was real, if wishes really could come true. But tonight, sitting under the fairy lights with David's gift in her hands and hope burning bright in her chest, Emma already knew the answer. Magic was real because people like David existed, people who appeared when you needed them most, who saw the love you had to give and helped you find others who were ready to receive it. As she finally stood to head home, Emma noticed that her footprints in the snow seemed to glow faintly too, just as David's had. Maybe that's what happened when you carried a little bit of Christmas magic with you. Maybe that's what happened when you were brave enough to wish for love and open enough to receive it. The fairy lights continued to twinkle above her as she made her way back through the park, lighting her path home and keeping her warm with the knowledge that sometimes, when you wish on 3 December nights under magical lights, the universe conspires to make your dreams come true. And tomorrow, at a Christmas party at Riverside Children's Home, 3 hearts that had been searching for each other would finally find their way home.